The siege of Nexus Prime lasted 3 days, but the outcome was decided in the first 3 hours. The Council's home defense fleet, designed more for parades than combat, crumbled under the coordinated assault of human battle, groups that appeared from multiple directions. Simultaneously, Admiral Taman watched from his flagships, bridges Council defense platforms exploded in brilliant flashes against the backdrop of the galactic capital cityscape. Each explosion represented not just military hardware, but thousands of years of assumed superiority being torn apart by a species the Council had dismissed as primitive colonists. "Sir, enemy resistance is collapsing across all sectors," reported Captain So Young from her tactical station. "Their remaining units are requesting surrender terms." "Accepted. But keep weapons locked on their positions. This war has taught us to be careful about alien promises." What impressed observers throughout the galaxy was not just humanity's military victory, but their restraint in achieving it. Human forces systematically avoided civilian targets, preserved cultural sites, and minimized collateral damage even while dismantling the Council's ability to continue the war. President Ji-un arrived on Nexus Prime aboard her personal transport, escorted by a full battle group but carrying documents for peace negotiations rather than demands for unconditional surrender. Her first meeting with Council Speaker Veltar took place in the same crystal amphitheater where Ambassador Wu Jin had tried desperately to prevent this war. The once arrogant Council Speaker looked older and smaller as he faced the human leader, who had just demonstrated her species' capacity for both warfare and mercy. "President Ji-un," Veltar began, his voice lacking its former commanding tone, "the Council is prepared to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "That's good," Ji-un replied simply, "because I have some ideas about how we can build something better than what came before." The terms humanity presented shocked the assembled Council members. Instead of demanding territory, reparations, or revenge, President Ji-un proposed the dissolution of the species-based council system and its replacement with a democratic federation where worlds, not species, would hold representation. Ambassador Wu Jin, vindicated after his failed peace mission, worked alongside progressive council members who had secretly opposed the war from the beginning. Zephyrian scientist Kethera and young Velthani noble Yilmoth became unexpected allies in drafting what would become known as the new Galactic Charter. The old system failed because it assumed that species loyalty was more important than individual world interests, Wu Jin explained during one of the drafting sessions. A Korag mining world has more in common with a human agricultural colony than either has with their species' homeworlds. The post-war analysis revealed truths that made many council members uncomfortable. Engineer Subin's examination of captured alien technology showed that their advanced civilizations had been recycling the same innovations for centuries, avoiding risks and experimentation in favor of maintaining stable hierarchies. "Look at this Velthani power system," Subin demonstrated to a mixed audience of human and alien engineers. "It's beautifully designed and perfectly reliable. It's also identical to systems they were using 500 years ago. They stopped innovating because innovation meant change, and change threatened their social order. Human technology, by contrast, evolved constantly because human society rewarded innovation and adaptation. The chaos that council species feared in human civilization was actually the source of humanity's greatest strength." General Boram established the new Galactic Defense Force with volunteers from all willing species serving under human tactical doctrine. The results were immediately apparent. Mixed units performing far better than the segregated forces that had characterized council military organization. "Humans have a saying," she explained to her mixed species officer corps. "The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. We're going to prove that principle applies to galactic military operations." Korag soldiers brought their physical strength and direct assault capabilities. Velthani officers contributed strategic thinking and administrative skills. Zephyrian technicians provided advanced equipment maintenance and modification. Etherian psychics offered communication and coordination abilities. Brinthi quartermasters ensured efficient resource management and logistics. The signing of the new Galactic Charter took place 6 months after the Battle of Nexus Prime. Representatives from over 200 worlds gathered in the rebuilt council chambers, now redesigned to emphasize equality rather than species hierarchy. Council Speaker Veltar now serving as a world representative rather than a species leader, approached President Ji-un with a question that had haunted him since the war's end. President Ji-un, when your fleets held absolute power over this system, you could have demanded anything: territory, resources, revenge for our attacks on your colonies. Why did you show mercy to those who had shown you none? Ji-un's answer became one of the most quoted statements in galactic history. Because we came not as conquerors but as gardeners. A garden thrives through diversity, not domination. What kind of gardeners would we be if we destroyed the very diversity we sought to protect? But peace remained fragile. Intelligence reports reaching Admiral Dong-hyun indicated that not all Council species accepted the new order. Rogue Korag warlords were forming alliances with radical Etherian separatists who refused to acknowledge human authority. Outlying Brinthi commercial guilds were funding piracy operations against human trade routes. The war is over, but the peace is just beginning, Dong-hyun reported during a staff meeting. We won the right to reshape galactic civilization. Now we have to prove we can make it work. Admiral So-young, promoted to command the new frontier fleet, prepared for humanity's next challenge. Her mixed-species crews would explore the galaxy's uncharted regions while maintaining the peace that had been so costly to achieve. Standing on the bridge of her flagship, the UES New Horizon, she looked out at a galaxy that had been fundamentally changed by humanity's arrival. Human families were returning to their liberated colonies. Alien refugees were finding new homes on human worlds. Mixed-species crews worked together on exploration and defense missions that would have been impossible under the old Council system. Navigator, plot a course for the galactic rim, she ordered. I want to see what's out there beyond Council space. Aye, Admiral. Though I should mention that long-range sensors are detecting some unusual energy signatures in the outer spiral arm. So-young smiled. Humanity had proven they could fight a war when cornered and threatened. Now they would prove they could maintain a peace built on cooperation rather than conquest. Then we'd better go take a look. The galaxy is bigger than the Council ever imagined, and I have a feeling we're going to need all the friends we can make. As the New Horizon and her escort fleet departed for the unknown regions beyond the former Council borders, the crew represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Not conquerors or explorers from a single species, but gardeners tending a garden that now included the entire galaxy. The war had begun when peace talks collapsed, and the galaxy saw humanity arrive with warships. It ended with humanity proving that the greatest victory was not in the destruction of enemies, but in the creation of allies. Behind them, on worlds throughout human space, children of different species played together in parks that had been battlefields just months before. Above them, mixed crews served aboard ships that protected not just human interests, but the dream of a galaxy where diversity was strength rather than division. The Council had sought to contain humanity, to prevent them from spreading their chaos throughout the galaxy. Instead, they had unleashed something far more dangerous to the old order: the idea that cooperation was stronger than domination, that adaptation was better than stagnation, and that the future belonged not to any single species, but to all of them working together. In the end, humanity had indeed brought warships when peace talks collapsed, but they had also brought something the galaxy needed even more: hope for a better tomorrow. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. In 12 different star systems, massive human fleets emerged from hyperspace simultaneously, appearing where no large human military forces had existed just months before. The ships were not the small patrol vessels and colony transports the Council remembered. These were true warships, bristling with weapons and armor that seemed impossible for such a young spacefaring species to possess. Admiral Dong-hyun stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable Will, watching his fleet take formation around the Rigel system. His dreadnought was 3 times larger than anything humanity had fielded before the war began, and it was just one of dozens in his battle group. Sir, Council forces are moving to intercept, reported his tactical officer. Looks like a full Korag battle fleet supported by Velthani cruisers. Good, Dong-hyun replied. Let them come to us. They still think this is the same war they started 3 months ago. The Council's strategic planners had made a critical error. They assumed that humanity's rapid withdrawal from the colonies meant their military production had been disrupted. In reality, every human world, including Earth itself, had converted to wartime manufacturing the moment the first attacks began. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belts around human systems had been working non-stop. Industrial facilities that had produced civilian goods were now churning out weapons, armor, and spacecraft. Most importantly, human engineers had been studying captured Council technology and finding ways to improve upon it. The Battle of Rigel began at 0600 ship time when the Korag fleet opened fire with their massive plasma cannons. The weapons that had terrorized other species for centuries struck human shields that absorbed and redirected the energy back at their attackers. Adaptive. "Shielding is holding steady," reported Chief Engineer Hyunwoo from his position in the engineering section. "Their weapons are powerful, but they use the same frequency patterns every time. Our shields learn from each hit and adjust automatically." Donghyun smiled grimly. "Return fire. All batteries target their command ships first." The human fleet's response was unlike anything the Council had encountered. Instead of the traditional line formations used by galactic militaries for thousands of years, human ships moved in dynamic clusters that constantly changed position and formation. Weapons fire came from unexpected angles as ships coordinated their attacks with split-second timing. Meanwhile, in the Centauri system, Commander Yeon-Soo was demonstrating another human innovation that terrified Council strategists. Her stealth division struck without warning, targeting command vessels and communication arrays with surgical precision. The UES Silent Thunder decloaked directly behind a Velthani flagship, launching a spread of torpedoes before disappearing again into the electromagnetic noise of the system's asteroid belt. The enemy admiral never even saw the ship that destroyed his command center. "All stealth units. Priority targets are their command and control nodes," Yeon-Soo broadcast on the encrypted tactical channel. "Cut off their heads and their fleets become uncoordinated mobs." Council military doctrine relied heavily on centralized command structures. Each species had developed rigid hierarchies where orders flowed down from senior commanders to subordinate units. When human forces systematically eliminated these command links, entire Council fleets found themselves unable to coordinate their actions. On the ground, Colonel Jae-sung was liberating Kepler 442b with tactics that would become legendary among human military historians. His assault troops didn't just fight, they adapted their strategies in real time based on enemy responses and environmental conditions. The Korag occupation. Forces had fortified themselves in the colony's main city, expecting a traditional siege. Instead, human forces emerged from the underground tunnel networks that had been built during the original colonization. They struck from inside the supposedly secure perimeter, using captured alien weapons alongside their own equipment. 3rd Battalion, use those Korag plasma rifles on their own supply depot, Jae-sung ordered. 1st Battalion, deploy the mining charges around their communication tower. Let's make some noise. The liberation of Kepler 442b became a symbol of human resilience. Captain Jin Ho's original garrison had never actually been defeated. They had been gathering intelligence and conducting sabotage operations for months, while appearing to be conquered civilians. "Colonel, it's good to see proper military support," Jin Ho said as he emerged from his hidden command bunker. "Though I have to say we've been having fun with our uninvited guests." The colonists had spent their occupation creating detailed maps of every enemy position, intercepting communications and preparing surprises for their liberators. What should have been a costly assault became a coordinated operation where the occupying forces found themselves surrounded by enemies they hadn't known existed. Dr. Sung Ho, now serving as fleet xenobiologist, made discoveries during the battles that would reshape humanity's understanding of their enemies. The Council species specialization hadn't just made them inflexible, it had made them predictable. Admiral Tae-min, "I've analyzed combat data from 7 different battles," he reported from his research station aboard the flagship. Each Council species responds to tactical situations in ways determined by their biology and culture. The Korag always charge directly at the strongest enemy position. The Velthani try to outmaneuver opponents through complex formations that take too long to execute. What about the others? The Zephyrians rely completely on their technological advantages and become confused when faced with simple, improvised tactics. The Etherians try to mentally dominate enemy commanders, but when that fails, they have no backup strategies. The Brinthi calculate odds constantly and retreat when the math turns against them. This intelligence allowed human commanders to predict and counter enemy moves with devastating effectiveness. What had seemed like overwhelming alien superiority revealed itself as a collection of inflexible responses to tactical situations. Captain So Young, analyzing the broader strategic picture, identified the war's turning point. Admiral Taemin, the Council fleets are massing for a decisive battle at the Centauri system. Intelligence indicates they're planning to crush our main fleet and force Earth's surrender. How many ships? Over 300 capital ships from all 5 species. They're calling it the Grand Armada. It's probably the largest military force assembled in galactic history. Taemin studied the tactical display, noting the enemy fleet positions and movement patterns. The Council was making the same mistake they had made throughout the war. They were fighting according to their established rules while humanity wrote new ones. So Young, what's the status of our deep penetration assets? All reconnaissance units are in position. We have complete intelligence on Council fleet movements and a clear path to Nexus Prime itself. The plan that emerged from human strategic planning was audacious beyond anything the Council could have imagined. While their Grand Armada prepared for a climactic battle that would never come, human forces would strike directly at the heart of galactic power. We're not going to fight their battle, Taemin announced to his fleet commanders during the final briefing. We're going to win the war while they're getting ready for it. Admiral Dong Hyun understood immediately. A direct assault on Nexus Prime while their main fleets are out of position. Exactly. They expect us to meet them in honorable battle at Centauri. Instead, we're going to appear in orbit around their capital world and end this war before their armada knows it started. The operation required precise timing and complete surprise. Human fleets would have to travel through heavily monitored Council space without being detected, coordinate their arrival within minutes of each other, and neutralize the defenses of the most heavily protected world in the galaxy. It was exactly the kind of plan that other galactic species would consider impossible. Which was exactly why it would work. Commander Yeon-su, leading the advanced stealth units, transmitted the final intelligence report that confirmed the operation could proceed. All fleets, the target is clear. Nexus Prime's home defense fleet is minimal, mostly ceremonial units without combat experience. They never expected anyone to be crazy enough to attack their capital directly. That's because they've never fought humans before. Taemin replied, all units begin final approach. It's time to end this war. As the human fleets moved into attack positions around Nexus Prime, Council Speaker Veltar was in his chambers preparing for what he expected would be humanity's final surrender. The Grand Armada was in position, Earth was isolated, and the upstart species would soon learn their place in the galactic order. The first indication that something had gone wrong was when the orbital defense platforms around Nexus Prime began exploding. The second was when human warships appeared on sensors where no human ship should have been able to reach. The third was when Admiral Taemin's voice echoed through the Council chambers. Council Speaker Veltar, this is Admiral Taemin of the United Earth Defense Force. You wanted to see what happens when you threaten human families. Look outside your windows. The first attack came at exactly 8:01 Galactic Standard Time, 1 minute after the Council's ultimatum expired. Captain Jinho was drinking his morning coffee on Kepler 442b when the proximity alarm started screaming. Through his office window, he could see the massive shadows of Korag dreadnoughts blocking out the sun as they descended through the atmosphere. All civilian personnel to the emergency shelters, Jinho announced over the colony's communication system. His voice stayed calm despite the fear growing in his chest. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. The Korag had expected to find frightened farmers cowering in their homes. Instead, they found something that would confuse and terrify them for the next 6 days. The agricultural domes that dotted the colony's landscape suddenly bristled with weapon emplacements. Mining equipment rolled out of storage facilities, converted overnight into mobile artillery platforms. Jinho had spent 2 years preparing for this moment, after receiving Admiral Taemin's classified defensive protocols. Every colonist over the age of 16 had received basic military training. Every piece of civilian equipment had been designed with dual purposes in mind. The farming colony was actually a fortress that looked like a farm. The first wave of Korag dropships landed in what they thought was an empty field. Underground blast doors opened, and human defenders emerged from tunnels that had been disguised as irrigation systems. The aliens found themselves in a crossfire from positions they hadn't even known existed. Korag military doctrine was built around overwhelming force and direct confrontation. They were excellent at fighting other armies in open battles with clear battle lines. They had no idea how to deal with humans who appeared from nowhere, struck their supply lines, and disappeared back into terrain the aliens couldn't navigate. While Jinho's colonists were demonstrating the true meaning of human stubbornness on Kepler 442b, similar scenes were playing out across human space. On New Geneva, engineer Subin had converted the colony's industrial fabricators to produce combat drones overnight. The machines that had been making farming equipment and construction materials were now churning out swarms of small, fast robots armed with explosives. The Velthani fleet that attacked New Geneva expected to face primitive human technology. Instead, they found themselves swarmed by hundreds of drones that moved in coordinated patterns, striking weak points in their ship hulls and then vanishing into the planet's electromagnetic storms. Subin coordinated the defense from a command center buried deep beneath the colony's main city. The facility had been built as a geological research station, but its deep tunnels and reinforced walls made it perfect for withstanding orbital bombardment. Drone Swarm 7, target the lead cruiser's sensor array, she ordered. Swarm 12, hit their communication dishes. Don't let them coordinate with the main fleet. On Titan Station, Administrator Kyung-suk faced a different challenge. Her facility was a mining operation in an asteroid field, with no planet to provide cover or resources. But what she lacked in defensive positions, she made up for with mobility. The asteroid miners had always been a tough, independent group. Their work required them to operate in dangerous conditions using powerful equipment. When the Council fleets arrived, they found that mining ships could be converted into surprisingly effective combat vessels. Kyung-suk's improvised fleet used the asteroid field itself as a weapon. They lured Council ships into narrow passages between massive rocks, then used mining charges to collapse the passages and trap the enemy vessels. What had been a peaceful mining operation became a deadly maze that picked off enemy ships one by one. But despite these local victories, the overall strategic situation was grim. The Council had attacked 12 colonies simultaneously with overwhelming force. Even with their unexpected defensive capabilities, the human settlements were vastly outnumbered. Admiral Taemin, commanding the Earth Defense Fleet from his flagship, made one of the most difficult decisions of his military career. Instead of trying to defend every colony at once, he ordered a strategic withdrawal to the Sol system. All colonial defense forces, implement Protocol 7, he announced over the encrypted command channel. Fall back to defensive positions and prepare for extraction. Captain So Young, monitoring communications from her station, looked troubled. Sir, the colonists are requesting permission to stay and fight. They don't want to abandon their homes. I know, Taemin replied, but if we spread our forces too thin trying to hold everything, we'll lose everything. Better to consolidate our strength and plan a counterattack. The withdrawal was conducted with typical human efficiency, but it came with a hidden purpose. Every abandoned colony left behind concealed observation posts and sleeper agents. Equipment that appeared damaged was actually transmitting intelligence data. Facilities that seemed destroyed continued to function underground. The Council interpreted the human retreat as proof of their military superiority. Their propaganda broadcasts declared swift victory over the upstart human expansion. They began making plans for occupying human territories and redistributing them among the established galactic powers. What they didn't realize was that every tactical mistake they made was being recorded and analyzed. Every weakness in their formations was being noted. Every communication they sent was being intercepted and decoded. Captain So Young, now commanding the reconnaissance vessel Persistent Hope, led a deep space intelligence mission that would change the course of the war. Her ship, equipped with the most advanced stealth technology humanity had developed, penetrated deep into Council space to study their military capabilities. What she discovered was both encouraging and disturbing. The 5 Council species had grown comfortable after centuries of peace and dominance. Their military technology, while advanced, had not improved significantly in decades. Their tactics were rigid and predictable, based on fighting other conventional forces in traditional battles. More importantly, their command structure was built around political appointees rather than experienced warriors. The Velthani admirals were chosen for their noble bloodlines, not their strategic skills. The Zephyrian fleet commanders were tech specialists who understood their equipment, but had never faced real combat. The Etherian mind speakers could coordinate fleets telepathically but had no experience with enemies who couldn't be mentally influenced. "Admiral," So Young reported during a secured transmission, "the Council fleets are powerful but inflexible. They're fighting the last war, not this one. Their commanders have never faced an enemy that adapts and improvises the way humans do." Dr. Xiong Ho, analyzing the intelligence data, made an even more significant discovery. "Admiral Taemin, I've been studying the biological and psychological profiles of the Council species. They've become so specialized in their roles that they've lost the ability to adapt quickly to new situations." He brought up comparative data on his screen. The Kurag are excellent at direct military confrontation but can't handle guerrilla warfare. The Velthani are skilled at administration and diplomacy, but poor at rapid decision-making under pressure. The Zephyrians excel at complex technology, but struggle with simple, improvised solutions. What about the Etherians and the Brinthi? The Etherians are powerful psychics, but they've become dependent on their mental abilities. When they encounter minds they can't read or control, they're actually quite vulnerable. The Brinthi are excellent traders and negotiators, but they think in terms of profit and loss, rather than military objectives. Taemin studied the data with growing understanding. So each species has optimized itself for specific functions, but lost the flexibility that comes from being generalists. Exactly. Humanity's so-called chaotic unpredictability isn't a weakness. It's our greatest evolutionary advantage. We're adaptable in ways they've forgotten how to be. As the intelligence reports accumulated, a new picture emerged. The Council species had become so comfortable in their established roles and territories that they had stopped growing, stopped adapting, stopped preparing for new challenges. They assumed that their technological and numerical advantages would always be enough to maintain their dominance. President Ji-un, reviewing the intelligence from Earth, authorized what would become known as Operation Righteous Fury, humanity's first offensive military action in galactic history. "We didn't start this war," she announced to the United Earth Assembly, "but we're going to finish it. The Council wanted to see what humans do when cornered and threatened. They're about to find out." The message went out to every human military unit, every colonial defense force, and every civilian who had taken up arms to defend their homes. "The enemy has shown us their strength. Now we show them ours." Admiral Dong Hyun, commanding the Outer System defense fleets, received the authorization with grim satisfaction. "So we're done playing defense?" "We're done playing defense," Taemin confirmed. "Time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten human families." The Council had expected a quick war against a young, inexperienced species. Instead, they had awakened something they didn't understand and couldn't control. The real war was about to begin. The crystal amphitheater on Nexus Prime had been built to impress visitors with the Council's power and wisdom. Ambassador Wu Jin walked across the polished floor toward the speaker's podium, his footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. Above him, representatives of the 5 Council species sat in elevated positions, looking down like judges preparing to deliver a verdict. Commander Yeon Su stood behind Wu Jin, her hand resting casually near her sidearm. The diplomatic escort was small but professional, each member handpicked for this crucial mission. Cultural attaché Min Seo carried a data pad filled with information about human colonies, ready to counter any false accusations the Council might make. Council Speaker Veltar raised one of his 4 arms, and the chamber fell silent. "Ambassador Wu Jin of Earth, you have requested these proceedings to discuss the Council's directive regarding human territorial expansion. The Council will hear your response to our concerns." Wu Jin activated his translator device and began. "Honorable Council members, humanity comes before you today not as supplicants, but as fellow inhabitants of this galaxy. We seek to understand your concerns and find a path forward that serves the interests of all species." The Velthani representative, Lady Ailnara, leaned forward in her seat. Her species had ruled vast territories for thousands of years, and their aristocratic manner showed in every gesture. "Ambassador, your people have engaged in barbaric terraforming practices that destroy natural ecosystems. You force alien worlds to conform to your biological requirements rather than adapting to their natural conditions. Mincio handed Wu Jin a series of holographic displays showing before and after images of human colonies. Lady Ilnara, I must respectfully disagree. On New Geneva, our terraforming restored atmospheric balance to a world that had been stripped of its ozone layer by solar radiation. On Kepler 442b, we reintroduced extinct species using genetic samples preserved in the planetary ice. Our colonies don't destroy worlds, they heal them. The Korag General Brutus slammed his massive fist on his desk. His species had conquered dozens of systems through military might, and they respected only strength. Healing worlds? You militarize planets at an alarming rate. Every human colony has defensive systems and armed civilian populations. You prepare for war while speaking of peace. General Brutus, our defensive measures are a response to the hostile conditions we face on frontier worlds. Wild animals, geological instability, severe weather patterns. Our colonists must be prepared for many dangers. These same preparations help us assist other species in crisis situations. The Zephyrian tech lord Quantum Hess spoke next. His cybernetic implants glowed softly as he accessed vast databases of information. Your artificial intelligence development threatens galactic stability. Human computer systems evolve too rapidly for proper regulation and oversight. Dr. Sung Ho, humanity's chief xenobiologist who had been observing quietly, stepped forward. Tech Lord Quantum Hess, our AI systems are designed with strict ethical guidelines and human oversight. We've shared our research openly with the galactic scientific community, unlike some species who guard their knowledge jealously. The Etherian mind speaker, Silith, didn't use words. Instead, thoughts formed directly in everyone's minds, carrying undertones of disgust and fear. Human minds, chaos pattern, unpredictable, dangerous, spreading mind noise throughout galaxy must contain, must silence. Wu Jin had expected this reaction from the psychic species. Humans were one of the few races naturally resistant to Etherian mental manipulation, which made the Council's most powerful species nervous. Honored Silith, human mental diversity has led to breakthrough innovations that benefit all species. Our chaos patterns, as you call them, represent creative problem-solving abilities. Finally, the Brinthi trademaster, Profitwise, spoke with the calculating tone of someone who measured everything in economic terms. Human economic expansion disrupts established trade routes and resource allocation agreements that have maintained galactic commercial stability for centuries. Trademaster Profitwise, human colonies have created new markets and opportunities for all species. Our rapid development has increased overall galactic prosperity, not decreased it. The back and forth continued for hours. Wu Jin methodically addressed each concern with facts, evidence, and logical arguments. Mincio provided supporting data for every claim. Yeonsu remained alert, noting the dismissive body language of the council representatives. But as the day wore on, it became clear that the council members weren't really listening. They asked the same questions repeatedly, ignored evidence that contradicted their assumptions, and returned to their original accusations no matter how thoroughly Wu Jin refuted them. During a recess, Mincio pulled Wu Jin aside. "Sir, I've been monitoring their communication channels. This isn't a real negotiation. They're broadcasting highlights of the proceedings to their homeworlds, making it look like they're being reasonable while painting us as dangerous expansionists." Dr. Shung Ho joined them with disturbing news. "Ambassador, I've been gathering intelligence through discrete channels. The Council has been studying human behavior and biology for decades. They've concluded that we're what they call an aggressive, invasive species that must be contained before we spread further." Wu Jin felt his heart sink. He had hoped that face-to-face diplomacy might overcome whatever misunderstandings had led to the ultimatum. Instead, he was discovering that the Council had made their decision long before these talks began. Back on Earth, President Ji-un was receiving similar intelligence from her own sources. General Boram entered her office with the latest tactical assessment. "Madam President, our deep space monitors have detected Council fleet movements in 17 different sectors. They're positioning for a coordinated strike on all major human colonies. How long do we have?" "Based on their current deployment patterns, they'll be ready to attack in less than 2 weeks. The peace talks are buying us time, but not much." Ji-un turned to the strategic AI interface where Aria's voice patterns, based on engineer Hei-Wan's neural recordings, provided analysis. "Aria, what are our defensive options?" "President Ji-un, our current fleet strength is insufficient to defend all colonies simultaneously. However, our technological advantages in certain areas may allow for alternative strategies. I recommend consultation with Admiral Tae Min regarding mobile defense protocols. The President opened a secure channel to Tae Min's flagship. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen, showing the strain of the past weeks. Admiral, General Boram tells me we can't defend everything at once. What do you recommend? Madam President, if they're determined to attack, we need to change the rules of engagement. Static defense will fail against their numbers, but they don't know our true capabilities, and they're underestimating human adaptability. Back on Nexus Prime, the peace talks entered their final phase. Council Speaker Veltar called for the presentation of humanity's final terms for compliance. The chamber fell silent as Wu Jin realized this was the moment of truth. Ambassador Wu Jin, the Council has heard your explanations and justifications. We now present humanity's final opportunity for peaceful resolution. A massive holographic display appeared, showing the boundaries of human space. Red zones marked all territory beyond the Sol system. Complete evacuation of all colonies beyond Earth's solar system. Surrender of all military vessels for decommissioning. Permanent monitoring of Earth's space activities by Council peacekeepers. These terms are non-negotiable. Wu Jin looked at the terms that would effectively end humanity's presence in the galaxy beyond their home system. It was exactly what they had demanded in their original ultimatum, with the addition of permanent occupation by alien forces. Council Speaker Veltar, these terms would confine humanity to a single solar system, while placing us under foreign military control. This is not peace. This is surrender. Ambassador, those are the only terms the Council will accept. Your species has proven unable to expand responsibly. Containment is necessary for galactic stability. Wu Jin realized that the talks had been theater from the beginning. The Council wanted to show the galaxy that they had offered humanity a chance for peace before taking military action. He activated his communicator and sent a coded message to President Ji-un. The garden path leads only to thorns. The message was simple but clear. The peace talks had failed completely. The Council was determined to use military force to contain humanity, and no amount of diplomacy would change their minds. As Wu Jin prepared to leave Nexus Prime, he wondered if this was how wars always began, not with sudden anger, but with the slow realization that some conflicts couldn't be solved with words. The stars looked different when you knew someone wanted to take them away from you. Admiral Tae Min stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the distant lights that marked human colonies scattered across this corner of the galaxy. Each point of light represented millions of people who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. The communication panel beeped with an urgent message. Captain So Young, his tactical officer, looked up from her station with worried eyes. Sir, we have an incoming transmission from Nexus Prime, Priority Alpha. Tae Min nodded. Nexus Prime was the capital world of the Galactic Council, where the 5 major alien species made decisions that affected the entire galaxy. Humans were not part of this council. They were considered too young, too new to space travel to have a voice in galactic affairs. The main screen flickered to life, showing the tall, elegant figure of Council Speaker Veltar. The alien's pale blue skin seemed to glow in the chamber's artificial light, and his forearms moved gracefully as he spoke. Behind him, representatives from the other council species sat in their ceremonial positions. Admiral Tae Min of the human military forces, Veltar began, his voice carrying the tone of someone used to being obeyed. I speak for the Galactic Council with an official declaration. Your species has 30 standard days to withdraw from all worlds beyond your home system. This is not a request. So Young's hand moved instinctively toward her weapon controls, but Tae Min raised a hand to stop her. He kept his expression calm as Veltar continued. For 200 years, we have watched your people spread across the galaxy like a disease. You terraform worlds that should remain untouched. You build colonies on planets that other species have deemed unsuitable for life. Your rapid expansion threatens the natural order that has maintained galactic peace for centuries. The speaker paused, letting his words sink in. The Council has decided that humanity must be contained to prevent further contamination of pristine worlds. You will abandon your 47 colonial settlements and return to Earth. Your military vessels will be surrendered to Council forces for disposal. Any resistance will be met with corrective action. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Chief Engineer Hyunwoo was the first to speak. Corrective action? What does that mean? It means war. Taman said quietly. He had served in the Earth Defense Force for 30 years, but this was something new. The Council had never directly threatened humanity before. They had ignored human expansion, treating Earth like a minor irritation that would eventually solve itself. So Young pulled up tactical displays showing human space. Sir, our intelligence reports indicate massive fleet movements in Council territory. Ships are gathering in 5 different sectors, all positioned to strike at our colonies. Timon studied the data. The numbers were not encouraging. Humanity had built a respectable defense force, but they were vastly outnumbered by the combined Council fleets. The 5 alien species had been spacefaring civilizations for thousands of years. Their technology was advanced, their ships were powerful, and their armies were experienced. Get me a direct line to Earth, he ordered. Priority 1 encryption. Within minutes, he was speaking with President Ji-un in her office in Geneva. The woman who led Earth's government looked tired, as if she had been expecting this call. Admiral, I assume you received the Council's ultimatum, she said. Yes, Madam President. My tactical staff is analyzing their fleet movements now. They're not bluffing. This is preparation for a full-scale invasion. Ji-un was quiet for a long moment. In the background, Taemin could hear the sound of urgent conversations and rapid typing as Earth's government scrambled to respond to the crisis. I'm calling an emergency session of the United Earth Assembly, Ji-un said finally. But I think we both know what needs to happen first. We have to try diplomacy. Madam President, with respect, I don't think they're interested in negotiation. This ultimatum feels like something they decided long ago. Perhaps, but we have to try. I'm sending Ambassador Wu Jin to Nexus Prime. Maybe if we can sit down face to face, we can find a peaceful solution. Taemin doubted it, but he understood the president's position. No leader wanted to start a war if there was any chance for peace. What about our colonies? Should we begin evacuation procedures? Not yet. If we start evacuating, it sends a message that we're already defeated. Our people chose to leave Earth and build new lives. We don't abandon them without a fight. Admiral Dong-hyun's voice crackled through the communication system from his position near the outer colonies. Taemin, are you hearing this? My scouts are reporting Council ships moving into attack positions. They're not waiting for negotiations. I hear you, Dong-hyun. Begin defensive preparations, but don't fire unless fired upon. We're going to try diplomacy first. Diplomacy, Dong-hyun repeated, the skepticism clear in his voice. Against an enemy that's already pointing guns at our children. After the communication ended, So-young approached Tae-min with a data pad. Sir, I've been analyzing the Council's complaint against us. They say we're contaminating pristine worlds, but look at this. She showed him images from various human colonies. New Seoul was a thriving city built on a world the Council had declared uninhabitable due to its harsh storms. The human settlers had learned to work with the weather patterns instead of fighting them, creating beautiful architecture that flowed with the wind. On Kepler 442b, human terraforming had actually restored an ecosystem that had been damaged by ancient volcanic activity. The planet was now home to species of plants and animals that had been extinct for thousands of years. They're not angry because we're destroying worlds, So-young said. They're angry because we're succeeding where they gave up. These planets were written off as failures and we turned them into homes. Taemin nodded grimly. It's not about protecting the environment. It's about protecting their pride. Over the next few days, reports continued to flood in from across human space. The Council fleets were moving into position with military precision. Their formation suggested a coordinated strike designed to hit all major human colonies simultaneously. Meanwhile, Ambassador Wu Jin prepared for his journey to Nexus Prime. The veteran diplomat had negotiated trade agreements with dozens of alien species, but this would be different. This time, the survival of humanity was at stake. As Wu Jin's ship departed for the Council capital, Taemin received one final piece of intelligence that made his blood run cold. The Council had been studying human behavior and biology for decades, gathering data from every diplomatic contact and trade negotiation. They had concluded that humans were an invasive species that would spread uncontrollably if not stopped immediately. In their view, this was not a war of conquest. It was pest control. The 30-day countdown had begun, and Taemin knew that humanity's peaceful expansion into the galaxy was about to end in fire and blood.